So my name is Alexander Lopez. That's a little introduction of who I am. I grew up in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. I grew up in hospitality out there, but in 2016, I was riding my bicycle to work and I got clipped by a pickup truck and kind of didn't know how much I had damaged myself. At the time, I had a really complex wrist surgery in February of 2017, and then we moved to Greenville in April of 2017. By November of 2017, I started experiencing chronic pain focused around my gallbladder area. That became progressive, and after almost 9 months of going to doctors, I was at the point where my general practitioner had sent me to a pain specialist who said that essentially I had a super complicated case of fibromyalgia. They had no way of treating me, and I would be on Social Security disability for the rest of my life. And I said, that is not what I'm going to do. So I searched on just Google and Piedmont popped up. I called, explained what had happened, and I had an appointment the next Tuesday after I called. Went in to see Dr. Schwartz, at the time it was Dr. Schwartz, and Dr. Schwartz, after 2.5 hours of explanations and scans and everything, he was like, I can treat you. I will be able to get you back to at least 90% capacity, and let's get going. Basically what happened based on the explanation was me landing from that injury had caused my spine to kind of contract, and it had pinched a bunch of nerves from the base of my skull all the way down to my tailbone. So all those nerves started being pinched and started reacting and sending signals to different parts of my body until I hit my threshold of pop-out pain, where then every neural impulse from then on became nerve pain. I was saying that it was a nerve issue from the second or third month of this, and they did nerve conductivity tests and said, no, your nerves work fine. It's not the nerves working fine. It is the nerves are miscommunicating signals, because if the music is too loud, I get a migraine. And so they weren't listening to me. So when I went to Dr. Schwartz the first time, he listened to my entire story. And then whereas all the other doctors who I'd gone to were poking at my abdomen, he went straight to the spinal column and started poking me there, and was immediately able to get everything and figure out exactly what I had. Yeah, so then it started, I did 4 years almost of treatments every 2 weeks with Dr. Schwartz until the pandemic. And then through the pandemic, we switched into lighter treatments, because 2019 essentially was when I got permission to go back to work part-time. And that's when I really started pushing myself as hard as I could to get back into where I wanted to be in my life. And 2022 in September, I was able to move to France, where I spent 1.5 years getting my master's degree in wine and spirits management. During the beginning of my condition, I was seeing my GP. My GP was very good in terms of setting me up with tests, but every time I went to a test with a specialist, the specialist would always tell me that it was something, this, that, the other thing. We don't know what's going on, even though I'm explaining to them what's happening, and I would continuously explain it the exact same way. I always explained it in the sequential order of how things felt. So whenever I did that explanation, it would always be at the end of that conversation, it would just be like, oh, it's in your head, was the first round of conversations. Or are you sure that this is the pain level that you feel? Are you sure you're not just telling us that you feel really bad so that we can give you drugs? And then when we finally reached the point where they sent me to a pain specialist through Prisma, the pain specialist there, they didn't even take the opportunity to listen to my story. They just looked at my chart, said, this is what you have. This is what we're going to treat you with. We are going to just put you on this. We're going to give you a write-up for Social Security disability, and we'll never see you again. And that was when they put me on gabapentin, which didn't do anything except for make me gain 35 pounds of water weight. And that was when I decided to take my treatment into my hands because I knew that there was something wrong. And I needed to find somebody who would just take the time to sit there, listen to me, and help me to communicate what I had, but also to just listen to what I was saying and help me to find where I needed to be going in my next stages. And that's where PPMR was amazing, because I was able to immediately, it was not a multi-day, it wasn't like 2 weeks, it was the same day of my first treatment. I had a plan, and we had a plan of attack, something that we were going to be doing to get me back into the level of health that I wanted. And even at the time, when I was talking to them, they said, well, we might not be able to get you back to 100% ever again. It's always going to be a problem, but we're going to work with you. We're going to figure out how do we progress, how do we create a solution that you can get back up to, say, 85, 90%. It was like this weight was lifted off my shoulders of me feeling like I was being denied constantly to being listened to, and then not only being listened to, but knowing that there was something wrong. And that something wrong was something that could be figured out, could be quantified, and could be treated. Talking to specialists, they would be like, well, your pain can't really be that much. Like, do you really understand what pain is? Like, you've never had a period, you've never given birth, like, you don't know what true pain is. So what you're experiencing is just what you think is bad. It's not at the level that is actually where we need to be paying attention. And this is a time when essentially I felt like I was holding on to a live electric fence 24 hours a day. All my fingers and toes were tingling. Every single neural impulse was shocking my system. It felt like I was on fire with electricity constantly. And some of my earliest symptoms that started progressing were abdominal issues. So my gallbladder, my liver, my appendix all started hurting. So really, once, like, when they did my endoscopy, when they did my colonoscopy, and when they kept on coming back and saying it's nothing, it's nothing, it's nothing, then I was really like, is my body just not communicating properly? Am I internalizing something? Am I creating a kind of focus loop where my brain is tricking itself into thinking that it's constantly in pain and then increasing that pain level? I did have that in the first few months, and we definitely had a lot of conversations about that. But when it progressed to the next stage, which was full body pain, I knew very much that it was something way more serious and something that really needed specialized care and needed that focus, because I've got a pretty high I had a pretty high tolerance for pain before that. I mean, when I had my first ACL surgery, I went off of the drugs that they gave me after 2 days because I didn't like how the drugs were feeling on me. So I was like, I can handle just a little bit of surgical pain. I'm not going to bother with it. So we did a 2-stage treatment cycle. So the first stage was essentially stabilizing everything. So focusing in on the pieces of on the ligaments of my spine that were most damaged, and then spreading out and doing the entire spinal column from top to tail with prolotherapy. So every 2 weeks, getting shots in my back every time, and just getting everything, stabilizing the superstructure of my body. And then once the superstructure was stabilized, then we went into progressive nerve blocks. So the same way when your computer's malfunctioning, you unplug it, wait 10 seconds, plug it back in again. So we use nerve blocks on my sympathetic nervous system to shut off the entire electrical system for a couple days. and then allow me to come back in. And once the system rebooted, then it said, hey, everything's working a little bit better this time. You're not in pain anymore. So that process of just shutting down and restarting after everything had been fixed really helped to progress that. And then now we've been with Terzella, we've been working on just all of the pieces of my body that didn't get looked at by Dr. Schwartz because we were too busy focusing on my spine and my actual condition. Working out more and more, I've been on a really good exercise tear. So I'm starting to recognize that there's muscle groups that maybe are misaligned. There's places that I'm based on different surgeries that I've had in the past. There's smaller muscles that are being overworked and are getting sore. So now it's taking on the whole system. Like next treatment, we're going to start tackling my left knee, which has had 2 knee surgeries on it. So that's the fun part. How things have developed since my treatment started. The first year and a half of treatment, I did not work. I even barely left the couch because I was in so much pain that I just couldn't even function. By the end of 2019, I had permission to do 2 to 3 days a week of part-time work. And that's when my wife, who is my rock and my full stability through all of this, she really encouraged me to pursue the passion that I had been taking the time to study while I was hurt. And really just kind of focus in on the fact that wine and spirits are something that I can connect with deeply. I love the history of it. So why not take advantage of the fact that I've been given a new life and challenge myself to the absolute limit. So that is when I started taking different certification exams and doing research to eventually find the MBA program in Dijon in France that I went to for my master's degree, which then that was a goal of like, I'm going to get into this master's program. I will push myself as hard as I can. I'll take as many certification tests as I need to get myself up to the par of being able to go and study this in France. And when I told Schwartz about that, he said, okay, let's set up a treatment plan that we can start progressively getting you into the shape that you need to be in so that you can leave for a year and a half and not have to be coming in every 3 weeks at that point.
Okay.
So once again, it comes back to that communication and being able to have those conversations where this is my goals, these are where I want to be, this is what I want to be doing now that I'm coming out of this period of chronic pain, but always being aware that anything can happen and I can be easily re-triggered and go back into things. So that's always on the awareness spectrum, is pay attention to my body. Life is very different. I am not doing part-time work anymore. I think I worked 72 hours over the last weekend. I am always, at this point, everything that I do is with an entirely new lease on life. So whenever I'm communicating with someone about just where do they want to be in their career, and I often get the comment of, oh, you're so professional, you must have known that this was always what you wanted to do and you've always been pursuing this. I said, no, not necessarily. It is only in the last 6 years that I've really pushed myself to this absolute limit, and that's because you can lose everything in a heartbeat. And if you get that back, then if you don't take it and run at 100 miles per hour, then why did you push yourself to get healthy again in the first place? As a man, you're told to just buck up. I mean, if you hurt yourself, well, you'll be fine. You'll get through it. Everything up until breaking a bone is something that you can get over. So when it comes to something as complex as nerve pain, it's very difficult to even internalize how you have that conversation with somebody about where or what is hurting or how much it hurts. And to get that good example is when I was getting my treatments, we went on a trip. So during that trip, we had requested a wheelchair for me because I couldn't walk through an airport. So I'm sitting there looking very young and healthy, sitting in a wheelchair, and every single person in the airport just stared at me. Like I was just freeloading and just going through life. Like, what could he possibly be going through that merits him just sitting there? And you can never explain that situation. It's like, you can't tell somebody, oh, everything hurts. Because they'll be like, well, it can't hurt that much. It's until and that's where the electric fence thing is something, because as many guys as I know, every single guy I know has at one point touched an electric fence. So they understand that. They understand that level of, oh, it's not regular pain. It is, your body is shocked. We are just giant batteries, essentially. So having that kind of conductive nature and then having that all be internalized and have your entire electrical system malfunctioning is very difficult to explain to anybody, because it's difficult for me to even comprehend. So I'm a evangelist for PPMR. Every time I go to the office, I grab 5 or 6 business cards, because every time I'm having a conversation, every day almost, I'm having a conversation with somebody, whether it's a guest at a table or one of my coworkers or somebody who works with me, and they're explaining something like, oh, my back hurts, oh, my knees have been hurting, oh, I have to go into surgery to get my spine fused. And I'm just like, no, really don't. What you need to do is you need to just go to this office and they will help you figure out what's wrong. It may take some time, but you don't always have to get cut open. And I think the modern approach to medicine is very much, let's cut you open and figure it out. And that is a lot of trauma being done to your body. Every time that they cut you open, your body is experiencing a whole lot of trauma. And if you have a complex nerve condition, getting cut into is not going to help. It's going to actually hurt you more, because then you're going to have the recovery process of getting back from that. So I've always had just a handful of business cards for PPMR, and I will hand them out to everybody. It's the passion to help. It is a patient-focused practice. It is not a doctor-centric practice. It is always the patient is the most important thing, and what is troubling them, and how can we fix what is troubling them? How can we give them the life back that they want? And I think Dr. Schwartz was probably the best example of this, because if you know Dr. Schwartz, the first couple of times that you talk to Dr. Schwartz, you are saying 100% of the words. And you're getting maybe 2 or 3, if you get 2 or 3 sentences out of Dr. Schwartz in your first visit, you have broken the world. Because he's just listening to you. He's listening, he's typing everything that you're saying down. He's creating a log of all of the experiences that have led you up to this point. He's creating, and Dr. Terzella is the same way. They're always listening to what is going on with your body, because you're living in your body. You know your body. And if you are hurting, and this is hurting, and this is hurting, then they should be listening to you, because that's what medicine should be. So working with Dr. Terzella is a blast. Because he's a wine lover, so we spend about 50% of our time talking about wine, and then the rest of the time talking about treatments. But it's so nice to have that connection of he knows what's going on. But then, like when we were talking about my knee the other day, he was looking through my chart and he was like, oh, we never scanned your knee. We've never done an ultrasound of your knee. Well, there was other things that were broken. We had a lot, the whole body had to get fixed. And especially with Barré Liéou, it's so complicated, and so rare. You don't have very many people who have this disorder, so even explaining what it is like, yeah, it's kind of fibromyalgia-esque, but it's different. It's more spinal focused. It's more sympathetic nervous system focused, whereas fibromyalgia is more actual nervous system focused. So everything is different, but the same, but different, but you can't. So having Dr. Terzella is nice because he knows what I've gone through. He can read the chart. He can have that conversation of like, okay, how do we progress? How do we create new dynamics that will help you just continue to progress? Because even though I've not had a pain spike in almost 3 years now, it's still, let's focus on better, 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 better. And I'm always focused better, 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 better. And when it comes to having conversations about chronic pain, I am one of those people who will poke you and be like, hey, you need to go fix yourself. It needs to be, you shouldn't ever take that this is how I feel and internalize it as, oh, I don't have any outlets. I don't have any resources. Because you do. It's just, how hard are you willing to fight to bring yourself back to the life that you want? And it's a lot of individual achievement stuff, but you shouldn't ever feel that you don't have a place to go. And you just need to, that first step is just making a phone call. Because once you make a phone call, I mean, it's not a 6-month wait to get into PPMR. You can usually get in like within 2 or 3 weeks. It's not like getting an MRI where it's 6 weeks of waiting until you get an MRI. You'll be able to get in. You'll be able to tell your story. You'll be able to have that conversation and be listened to. And you'll have a treatment plan pretty much laid out by the end of your first visit. At least the start of a treatment plan, because it's just, let's create something that's going to get you back to being the you that you want to be, or just give you the resources. Use everything that you have. If you hurt, seize on everything that you have around you to pull yourself out of being hurt. There's family, but also you have a doctor's office right here in Greenville that's so specialist that when I was telling people in France about this, and this one doctor in Greenville, South Carolina, was able to treat you for this complex disorder. Yeah, I just have to say that it is the best decision I've ever made is calling Piedmont Physical Medicine and Rehabilitation, and I would not be where I am today without the treatments that I've gotten from Dr. Schwartz and Dr. Terzella, and I am eternally grateful. I cannot quantify how being where I am today was assisted by this office.